Welcome to the Unseminary Podcast. Are you looking for practical ministry help to drive your ministry further, faster? Have a sinking feeling that your ministry training didn't prepare you for the real world? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in pursuit of stuff that we wish they had taught in seminary. Buckle up and let's get started with this week's Unseminary Podcast.
All right, well, welcome to the Unseminary Podcast. My name's Rich Birch. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hopefully you're having a great week as you get ready for this weekend at your church. Today we've got a great church guest on the phone. We've got Jonathan Manafo from the Village Church in Whitby, or just really outside of Whitby, Ontario. It's so great to have Canadians on the show. I love exposing particularly a lot of our American listeners to Canadians because of this. Canada is, as in total country, is less churched than anywhere really in all of America. And so I think as people living and working in America, like myself, we should learn from people in other parts of the world, and Canada is a great place to do that from. Obviously, I'm also biased because I'm Canadian too. So Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having me.
Jonathan's a great leader. I think you're going to get a lot out of today's conversation. There's a lot to talk about. We've got this really cool kind of partnership model that he's got going for his church, and is doing some interesting things. But Jonathan, why don't you start by kind of give us a bit of your story, tell us a bit of your background, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the Village?
Sure. I've been pastoring for about 15, 20 years in 3 different locations. In Ontario, grew up half in Ontario, half in Quebec, in Montreal. So I have a bit of that background. I'm a musician as well. So part of the church work I've been doing has been a bit of music, but a lot of leadership and teaching and all that kind of stuff. And then in the last 3 years or 2 years and a bit, we've entered into this church planting phase, which is wild and fun, and didn't think I would do it. But boy, we just felt like something that God wanted us to do. And so in the last few years, the Village has come alive and become a church community in North Whitby. And it's been a lot of fun to see that kind of happen. Yeah, a lot of work and a lot of fun.
Nice. It's always great to speak with someone that has a little bit of that Quebec accent, just softens out the language nice. It's great. It's very good. It's nice to listen to. It's good.
That's good.
So why don't you give us kind of a flavor for the Village? What is, obviously when you set out and plan a church, you have some unique ideas and you want to try some things differently. What is it that you think the Village is doing that's kind of unique, particularly to reach people who just don't like to go to church, which there's a lot of those in Whitby?
There is. I mean, Whitby, or the area that we're in, it's called Durham, is the region. Mm-hmm. There's churches, but there's a big population that really has no interest in the traditional church or what they think the church looks like. And so we really felt that a different kind of a unique expression needed to be had here, and felt God wanted it as well. And so I guess we want to think about people that don't like church, that wouldn't really step foot into a traditional church, specifically maybe one even in a church building. And we've heard that from people that have come to the Village saying, I don't think I would have walked into a church building if you were in a church building, but because you're in a public school, already the walls seem down. And so those are the kind of people that we want to reach, and we feel like are coming and journeying with us. It's been really, really neat to see happen, actually. Yeah.
Now, what are you doing? I think a lot of times we're seeing a trend in churches that are trying to reach people who don't normally attend church, where it really is, it's less about kind of come and see it. It can be about go and do, like we're going to go and actually participate in, some missional activities or, that sort of things. Do you guys have that? Is that kind of a part of your flavor at the Village?
I think collectively, we are always trying to see how we can be connected in our community, how we can be serving in either needs or even just generally, connecting in people's lives. And so we invite people to do that along with us. We encourage people to do it on their own, like when they're living in their neighborhoods. So it's not just like, oh, there's this church event that they're doing. No, we want it to be like, this is my neighborhood. This is where I live. How can I express God's love with my neighbors and my friends and my coworkers and all that in very practical, normal kind of ways,
Nice. Yeah, very, very cool. Now, you did an event called Running for Home. Could you tell me about that? What's that all about?
Sure. Running for Home started 5 years ago. It was and I hate saying that I started it because it's never one person,
Right.
but it was just this dream that myself, my wife, a few other people kind of had, to start a run that would benefit people in their homes, like organizations that help people in their homes. Habitat for Humanity is a great example here in our area. And so we just kind of started it 5 years ago, had this idea. First year, maybe 41 people ran with us, not much, but
Nice.
you know, a good little start.
Yeah.
Second year, about the same. And then the third year, it kind of just exploded and grew by 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the last 5 years now, we've seen over 200 people the last 3 years come out. And it's a way I really feel like the church can connect with the community in non-threatening, very engaging way. And you're inviting people to do something that they actually want to do. And then surprisingly, it's actually connected to some local churches.
Absolutely.
So we encourage local churches to connect with us and spread the word, but we're also obviously connected to businesses. So we had this year our best sponsor, one of Canada's banks,
Nice.
RBC, sponsored our event, and that just like elevated what we could do and how much money we could raise. It was a big deal. Yeah, like all our sponsors underwrote all our expenses this year for the first time. So
now, how did that
was
conversation go? Because we do, at Liquid, the church I'm a part of, we do a 5K every year, or we've done it the last couple of years, last few years, I guess 3 years, 4 years. And we've tried to kind of tap the sponsorship thing, but we've had a harder time with that. How did the conversation with the bank go? Because I would think, man, they're pretty conservative on that stuff.
You know what? It's never really, you don't just walk into a bank and ask them the question.
Right.
You connect with somebody. So it just happened through relationship in our neighborhood.
Yep.
A friend of mine is a regional manager. We got talking about, hey, would like to be partnership in any way with us? Knowing that we connect with Habitat, there was this instant, we want to actually connect with Habitat. We're trying to figure out how. Well, our run is one way how. And so they was a really simple conversation, and then it ended up in quite a nice sponsorship. And not only for us, but they sponsored us about 2,500.
Yep.
They've actually, since my initial conversation, they've probably given Habitat Durham $20,000-$30,000.
Wow. Well, so
Yeah.
what a win for you. Here you are. I love that. That's a great story of here's a local pastor who's trying to pursue kind of the best for your community, right? So you're working with this bank, and you're trying to obviously get them to help sponsor your event, but then in the end broker that deal so that the Habitat can get support. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was really a neat offshoot or a surprise to see that kind of happen. And
Yeah.
I didn't do anything except just say, we support Habitat. Here's a person to talk to. and then it just snowballed for them. We had other great sponsors as well locally, some really great local businesses that help us out, including like the running store, the running room that does all our online registration, and it's some good stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, we just last weekend, or a couple weekends ago when this actually airs, we had our 5K, and it was a great event. We do our 5K is for clean water, and so we try to mobilize people, and it's amazing. The thing I've learned through that over the last couple of years is people will come. And they'll participate because they perceive it as a good thing. They say like, well, it's a good thing. It's a little bit of like in your case, who's going to say like, no, I don't want to support people, in their homes. Like who's going to be against that, right? No, I don't think people should have a place to live and, have, I just don't, I'm not going to say that, right? But we hope, our hope is that as they engage with folks from the church and get to know people, that it'll move from being a good thing to being a God thing. And it's been incredible to watch that happen, over the last couple of years. Now, you guys do some other events, like, you do, I think, movies and some other, things. How is that, kind of, what's that look like for you as you try to engage your community as you're planting your church?
Yeah. I mean, we feel we just want to be present in our neighborhoods. And so as a church community, two things we do right on the property of our school. One is we call it a Halloween pit stop. Really simple. It's not rocket science. It's not like the best idea in the world. But you know what? It's so simple. We just give people free coffee and hot chocolate on Halloween.
Oh, nice.
And we did this before we launched. Yeah, and we did it this past year as well. and you're just connecting with people, serving them. They are so thankful that they have a hot cup of coffee on a cold Canadian fall night. Like last year, it was raining, and people are still out walking with their kids, and they can't believe that we're out on a windy night in the rain giving them, hot chocolate and Starbucks coffee, right?
Nice. Oh, you're not giving them Timmy's? You're not giving them Tim Hortons coffee? Starbucks?
No, yeah, and now they sold out to Burger King, so that's it.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, and the local Starbucks is very they're generous when you connect with them, with their managers. It's just a great community connection. So we have some good relationships with them.
Absolutely. That's a great tip for folks. We found the same with our, here we are in New Jersey, you're in Ontario. We found the same thing with our local Starbucks as well. If you get to know the manager, we're talking about the 5K. Starbucks provided all the coffee for free.
Same thing.
For our, for all our volunteers at that event, which was amazing. So, and they just showed up with, here's a big thing of coffee and all that stuff, and didn't make a big fanfare about it. It was just like, sure, yeah, we'll provide that. I think we had to go pick it up, but that outside of that, so that's a good tip for people that are listening. You got to be nice to the manager, get to know them, because they get a lot of those requests. But that's a great opportunity for sure. Fantastic. I love Halloween too, because
for us, they actually came to us.
Oh, nice.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Sorry.
No, that's great. Yeah, Halloween's just one of those great time of years too, because people are out walking around the neighborhood, right? Like they're out already, and particularly as you're trying to articulate, we're trying to be a community church. There's not a lot of other better days when the community's actually out and about, walking around, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Now, I'd love to hear a little bit about your, you've kind of have, this unique structure, how you've kind of partnered with a couple different, movements, to kind of provide some, covering and, support for you. Talk us through a little bit about that. How does that work?
Well, myself personally, I really felt it was important to be connected to a local church body close to where we were planting. It just meant for us that we're not in this alone, that we're not just going into some community and starting a church and feel like we're not connected to anybody. I live in Whitby, so it's not like I moved into Whitby to plant this church. Right. This was kind of a reversal of the Great Commission. Instead of go and make disciples, we felt God saying, you need to stay and make disciples.
Oh, very cool.
So, they're called BBC, Brooklyn Village Church. Their hearts are generous. They've been wanting to plant another church from themselves for the last 4 or 5 years. And this opportunity came where they could partner, but a lot of the heavy load would come from the BIC, the Brethren in Christ in Canada. So we were able together to say, hey, let's do this together. Let's see if we can kind of use each other's strengths and see what everyone can contribute. And so our parent church is a Pentecostal church in North Whitby, or Brooklyn, we'll call it. But our denomination is the Brethren in Christ in Canada, and it's been great to connect with them. I feel really aligned with who they are. But to have a relationship with the Pentecostal church is really unique, to have those two things kind of happen.
Absolutely.
And the other side of the partnership is just recently, the Alliance churches, I've had some relationship with them over the years. And so they kind of said, well, we'd love to do something in Whitby, but you're already doing something new in the same pocket. So why don't we just support you? And let's try this non-denominational support. And of course, I don't want to say no to that.
Yeah.
So there's no strings attached from them. Wow. Basically, they help us as much as our mother church helps us, or our parent church, with no strings, just relationship, that we can help each other, and maybe we can mentor one of their future church planters, something like that in the future, So yeah,
that's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
The thing I think in a kind of post-Christian culture, a lot of times you say like a non-denominational church, will help reach people because it, doesn't have any baggage. The thing I love about what you're doing is you're kind of like multi-denominational. It's like, some people have said like, oh, let's get rid of, stop, being connected to denominations. You've kind of went in the opposite direction, saying, hey, I'll connect with lots of them, which is fantastic. That's fascinating to me for sure. No, that's great. Is there anything else you'd love to share with our listeners before we jump into the lightning round?
Well, even the whole, relationship with different denominations, I think it comes out of relationship, not just out of, oh, we want their money or we want their name connected. It's more the fact that over a bunch of years, you kind of connect with people and do ministry together and care about your city together. Mm-hmm. And so out of that, kind of these relationships form, rather than this kind of business transaction. I think it comes out of friendship and, a connected cause to what we want to do together for the kingdom. And I think that's something that I just wanted to get out. I think it's key. It's not all business. It really is friendship and partnership,
This is the Unseminary Podcast. Stuff you wish they taught in seminary.
Let's jump into the lightning round, that part of the show where we ask similar questions of everybody who's on the show. Today, super excited to have Jonathan Manafo from the Village Church in Whitby, Ontario, Canada. Great church leader, doing some really great things. You really should check him out. Check out his blog. Make sure you check out their website. We'll get all those addresses here at the end. But, Jonathan, what's like an online resource that you're using these days that's, helping you in your ministry?
Wow. I mean, the most general one for me is Evernote. That's just simple. It's not spiritual in any way. That's great. But boy, it helps me. Especially, I'm the only one. I'm the main teacher in my church community, right?
Yep.
And to be able to kind of just have all these different thoughts, and so a series is coming up that you have to do, even though you're teaching one at the present time. So a scripture comes or an illustration comes, you watch a movie, all that stuff. I mean, it's probably one of the best gifts that we have. And I say online because obviously we can use it from any source that we have, right? On our iPods or our computers or our phones or whatever. So that's been a huge help for me,
Absolutely.
I like jotting things down, but to know that it's there, themed, subject tagged is a great thing. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, Evernote, you got to check it out. It's been mentioned more than once on the podcast for sure. What's a book that you've read in the last 6 months that's kind of shaping your thinking about ministry?
Man, it's tough to nail down one. I mean, I mentioned in the question and answer that you had sent just Erwin McManus's last book, and that's not really a leadership book per se, but because I think I'm an artist and I hope I'm somewhat creative. That was kind of a neat way to think about how we view people and how we want to really encourage people in their giftings, but really who they can become in God, And I've always loved, it's not my life verse, as people have life verses, but Ephesians 2:10. And I feel like the whole idea of us being God's workmanship or his piece of art, I saw it through the local church lens, and so that was helpful. But I mean, that's one book, but I mean, I've been always reading a lot of N.T. Wright and Eugene Peterson, and those people shape me a lot. In the way I think, in the way I teach, I would say. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, what are some other ministries that are, influencing you these days? You're kind of looking to them, kind of learning from them.
I've been trying to look at other church planters to see what they're doing. There's a church in Nashville, I think Church of the City, just been they started at the same time as us, totally different backing, in a different neighborhood, growing at a totally different pace. But I still feel I can learn from, a group like them. And then there's smaller church communities that I've journeyed with over the years, like the last 5 years or so. There's a church plant in Montreal called the West Side Gathering. Sounds biased because he's my twin brother that leads it, but it's, I mean, what they've done in Montreal, and we talk about Canada being unreached and not Christian, Quebec is just the epitome of that.
Yes.
And to see a church community like that grow and be influential and talk about community work and effort, so stuff like that, I think I just kind of look at the people that are doing things right down on the ground and just try and learn and kind of compare notes, right? That's I think the best way that I learn and where I can get stuff from, for sure.
Absolutely. If you could pick any leader alive, or maybe two leaders alive that you could get 15 minutes with, you could sit down, ask them any questions, who would you want to sit down with and why?
It's good. I feel bad going to this, Bill Hybels route, only because so many people have mentioned him probably over the years. But I just think in my earlier part of ministry, I don't read as much of his stuff now. But there was a certain time that I read everything he wrote,
Yep.
And I think just getting the passion from him, and it's not even about methodology or structure or what he does that I can do. It's more the passion and the fuel that's kind of been this long lasting. I mean, who's been out there for 30, 40 years
right,
and hasn't stopped, and just continually has this passion to see people connect with God. So I think definitely with him. And then on a totally opposite end would probably be Eugene Peterson, because I feel like he understands the local church in a totally different way. There's not this church growth mentality behind him,
right,
but more a sense of like understanding really from scripture and the words of Jesus who we're supposed to be. And so I kind of think I'd love 10 minutes with him for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. Both obviously wildly influential in the church world, and we owe a lot to those guys for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know being a church planner is a ton of work. I know it's it consumes a lot of life, but when you're not doing that and you just want to kind of kick back, enjoy life, take some personal time, what do you like to do for fun?
I love to golf. I find cheap courses to do that, of course.
Isn't it free on Mondays for pastors? Isn't that true?
You know what? There is a course not too far from me that I try and get there twice a month.
Nice.
So very thankful for those folks. And it's $100 course that you play for free.
Wow.
So
Nice.
It's a great deal. But I mean, I love to run. I love to bike. I obviously love hanging out with my family and our kids and my wife. They're just amazing. So anytime we spend free time together is good. And I'm a musician that, I do it for a living, and it's part of my church ministry as well. But I also do that on the side and play with other musicians and love to write. And so that's kind of a neat outlet for me as well. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Jonathan, I really appreciate you being on the show today and taking time out to be with us. If people want to, get in touch with you or the Village, how can they do that? What's the best way for them to be in touch?
A couple of things. The Village website is thevillagewhitby.ca. My blog is jonathanmanafo.com. Great. I also write a wrap-up blog every Monday about our talks, and that's called blankchurch.ca.
Nice.
And so those are a few ways that they can get in touch. And then my email's there as well and all that. So
very cool. Well, thanks so much. Have a great weekend. And thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks, Rich. Great to chat.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's Unseminary podcast. Don't be shy. We'd love to connect. Check out Unseminary Inbox. You can sign up at unseminary.com, and we'll send you helpful training resources every week. Plus, you'll gain immediate access to our exclusive members area with tons of resources you can use. Connect with Rich on Twitter at Rich Birch or through email, rich@unseminary.com. Don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at unseminary.com. It includes links to what we talked about today and more. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Did you enjoy today's episode? Drop by iTunes and leave a review. Thanks again for tuning in to this week's Unseminary podcast. Join us next week when we'll learn more stuff we wish they taught in seminary.